So Magna Carta, at its heart, said nobody is above the law, and that's something that we at Amnesty completely believe in and would like to see applied globally. Our work is about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and working to see that declaration implemented, and there are just far too many places in the world where that isn't the case. And Amnesty can cast its light on any of those countries and any of those practices to see whether we can make a difference.
As the Minister for Modern Slavery in the Home Office, I take a real interest in how we can tackle this crime and how we as a country can lead the world in what we do to try and eradicate slavery today in the 21st century. The latest estimates are that there are about 35 million slaves worldwide. Some of those are here in the United Kingdom, and we need to do everything we can to find those victims and to find the perpetrators of the crime so that we can prosecute them and make sure that we act as a deterrent to other people doing this horrendous and heinous act to other people.
We're seeing freedom of expression and freedom of assembly blocked in many parts of the world. So whether it's China and access to the internet, whether it's the closing down of civil society space in places like Russia and Egypt and other parts of the world, those are areas that we as Amnesty campaign on. It is vital that as individuals we're able to say what we think without fear of being thrown in prison, and there's just far too many places where that still happens. So our movement campaigns, so we'll campaign for individuals and we'll campaign on those particular countries to see whether we can get laws changed, practice improved, and a sense of human rights being there for everybody.
Slavery today is, I suppose the best way to describe it is the commoditisation of human beings. It's treating one human being treating another as an asset for financial gain. So that might be through the sex industry, it might be labour exploitation, it might be domestic servitude. Slavery has a number of different forms and it's happening across the world. When you buy your goods from the supermarket, your clothes from the retailer, how do you know that the people who've made those goods, who've made those clothes, perhaps who've caught the prawns that you're eating or farmed the crops that you're eating, how do you know that they are not slaves? And what we need to do is do everything we can to help you have that information and to make sure that you know what slavery looks like so that we can help to find it.
I think that there's good practice in many countries, but there are hardly any countries in the world where human rights are observed in their fullest and to their fullest measure. So in Europe, Amnesty has campaigns about the plight of the Roma. In Australia, we've been campaigning for the Aboriginal population in that country. It isn't just China, Russia that are the worst offenders. It happens in all societies, and Amnesty will take up those cases too.
If I compare slavery today to what it was 200 years ago, when the slavery campaigners like Charles James Fox were working to abolish slavery, the challenge they faced was to make people understand that slavery was wrong, to make people understand that it was not right to treat another human being as your chattel. The challenge we face today is not that. People don't argue with that, they don't question it, they just don't know how to spot the signs of slavery, they don't know how to find those victims, and without us finding those victims we're not going to be able to eradicate this dreadful, horrendous crime. So the government is doing a number of things. We have introduced a modern slavery bill which is going through Parliament, and that bill does a number of things. It increases victim support and victim protection, particularly through the judicial process, so that victims can come forward and know that they won't face prosecution and that they will be supported. It increases the maximum penalty for people found guilty of modern slavery offences to life imprisonment. It says to those criminals that this is the worst crime you can possibly commit, and we, the British government, take it very seriously, and we will lock you up if we find you and when we find you, and we will make sure you are locked up for life and you pay a penalty, a serious penalty, for the horrendous way you have treated other people.
One of our permanent campaigns at Amnesty is our Individuals at Risk campaign, And in that, we campaign for specific individuals who have been arrested, locked up, denied fair trials, accused and sentenced without a fair process. And those are at the heart of everything that we do. Every campaign of Amnesty talks about the situation of individuals, and it is the power of ordinary members of Amnesty that make a difference. And in my job, time over time, I am in a situation where I hear those stories, I hear the difference that we've made, that conditions improved in a prison, that people were released, that people came off death row, that their situation improved. And it is absolutely the power of the Amnesty activism that has that effect.
And we introduce in the bill an anti-slavery commissioner, a dedicated independent person whose job is to make sure that all those agencies and all those bodies that might come across the victims know how to identify the victims, and that when we find the victims that we are able to support them to get the evidence that's needed to catch and convict those criminals. So the bill's a really important first step. It's the first of its kind in Europe, and something that I'm very proud that it's this government that's doing. It also includes a very important measure about transparency in supply chains. So this is a measure to say that any company that wants to do business in the UK, any large business that wants to sell products to you, has to take action and disclose the action they're taking to make sure there is no slavery in their supply chains. And that is a real world-leading measure that will make such a difference to those 35 million slaves around the world.
Amnesty International is a movement of over 7 million people, and we are ordinary people who stand up for justice. So we really are a movement. It is about the power of ordinary people to make change. And we campaign where people are imprisoned, where there is injustice, where there has been no fair trial, where people might be being tortured or are on death row. We campaign for refugees and asylum seekers, and we campaign on many different issues around the world. And we do our best to make a difference in individuals' lives and in the way in which the world is run.
In addition to the bill, we are taking other action steps. We've got a strategy that is about all the policy areas that we can work on, the cross-government working, the way agencies can work together, the way we can help to educate the police to see on the front line when they see a victim, to know what the signs are of that victim. We've also reviewed what's called the National Referral Mechanism, which is the way that victims get that very early stage support to give them the opportunities they need for to have a life, having been controlled by someone else for so long. And we are trialling advocates, specific advocates for child victims of trafficking, so that we can make sure the most vulnerable people, those children who are trafficked, get the support they need. And this package of measures, together with all the work that we're doing across government and internationally, I think will make a real difference to tackling this dreadful, horrendous crime, and that we can be very proud that 200 years on, it's the United Kingdom that is leading in this area.